That's right. So you bring one knee up. Yeah. Draw one knee up to the side. Draw one knee up to the side. Slide your knee up like we were doing. Excellent. Great. So Kevin, you stand up and put one foot forward or the other, as if you're going to take a step. Yeah? Great. That's it. Great. So just leave that there for a moment. Now let's have someone lying on their back. You lie on your back for a moment. And stand one foot and begin to turn your pelvis one way. Great. And now let's have someone who's sitting on the stool and be in the process of coming to standing. Great. So what's common to every one of these movements? What's common? What's common in every single one of these movements? So now you begin to make the movement of the dead bird. So put your left hand in front and put your right hand down. We call it the dead bird. Now, yes. Yes, okay. So now, if we watch very carefully what she's doing with herself. Now, the lesson, if we watch, as she makes this movement, where do her eyes go? Okay. As soon as she hears something, then she tries something. But you see that she's making this movement in a very, very interesting way. She makes the movement in such a way that as she turns, she's actually turning around herself over onto her right hip, and she's actually turning around herself and she's lowering herself. Is she getting taller as she makes the movement? No, right? And if you watch very carefully, her left heel does what? As she makes the movement, her left heel begins to come up. So you can see that she's turning her leg in her pelvis in a particular way. Yeah, okay, so, but there's something that we can start to study here about the way that she's organizing her legs into her pelvis. Now let's look at what you do, right? So that's the same thing. So as you start to make this movement of crawling that we made, right? So as you start to make the movement of, you start to crawl up. So now we can start to see. So she made the movement. Did she make the movement? Wait, slowly, 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 just one little movement, that's fine. So as she starts to make the movement, yes, she made the movement in such a way that her heel stayed down and she changed where her knee was and the power started to come up and through her back. Now we saw with Sharon, thank you. We saw with Sharon that on that side, she actually made the movement so her head went down. Okay, so we're seeing these same elements, aren't we? Now, if we watch the movement that she's making with her pelvis here, and she starts to roll her pelvis, right? And we can see whether she's going to roll her pelvis across. We can see if her knee's going to come down. We can see where her foot is. We can see whether she's going to increase the weight in her foot or whether the movement's going to transfer up and through her. But there's still this relationship between the turning of the femoral head into the pelvis, into the potential that it has. Yes? Now, Kevin, when he makes the movement, he starts to go from his back foot to his forefoot right there. As he started to stand up, go back again slowly, just this little part that he studies. As he starts to come onto his foot, and you watch right at that moment, in what way did his femoral head move relative to his pelvis? Did he glide out to the side, or did he actually rotate in such a way? Did he get taller when he stood up? He did. So something took place within him that, again, this transfer of force through himself. Yes? Right. Right. And so then we see her. Now, of course, she has 2 feet here, and she could have 2 feet. Gloria could have regular. Grace, okay. I don't know why I can't remember Grace. It's my own daughter. Anyway, so the other day, Grace writes to me, and she said, I took Grace to a campus visit. I took her to a campus visit, so down to Oregon State, the school I went to, because it has a really fine physics and engineering department. That's what she wants to study. And so she said the school wrote back and thanked my grandfather for bringing. Tell your grandfather thank you for bringing you to Oregon State. If she goes to Oregon State, she'll be a 5th-generation Oregon Stater. It's kind of strange. Okay, so now when she starts to stand right there, as she starts to come up, go ahead. What's happening in her legs? How's her feet? How is it that her knees, what happened in her leg? So in every single situation, each of these orientations, yeah, someone could be sidelined. Please come and sideline for a moment. And put your left leg on the side, like that, yeah, like that. Just to keep your arm where you were, right? So we can come into this lesson. Now, crawl forward. No, just crawl up and over your arm. Yeah, what did she do with her leg, and how did she make the movement with her pelvis? We have studied these lessons. Now, we're not saying we could look at each one of these situations, couldn't we? And we could find ways for the movement to become more clearly organized through the skeleton to produce the result. And we have an idea of what some of the results can be, whether it's going to lead us into the clarity of rounding, whether it's going to lead us into the kind of extension. We can look to see the timing of how the people put together the lessons in such a way. Is it evenly distributed through the whole themselves, or is there, do you see the watch on this side? No. That hand stays down. The other hand comes up. Is she going to get taller? Something. I don't know if she's working on it or if there's some inspiration that's within her. Look at how clear and clever her right heel is. But if you can, again, come around. Step it. Yeah, I understand, but so yeah. So obviously, if I make this movement, I lift as she makes this movement. If I lift her heel so that she rolls her leg that way, obviously that's going to turn her down, isn't it? But if I really make this movement, and we don't in this ATM lesson, we don't ask this session. We say move the right hip joint toward the left knee, but we don't ask about how to do that in some kind of way. But so what's going to happen in her that's going to make that movement to turn? So the whole question again, can you skeletally begin to watch and to see within the person how this movement to turn to sit? Now all of a sudden she's lengthened herself. Now there's this length in herself. Now she's going to turn around to a different point and see this world behind herself in a different place than what she does in the other side. Now she can make the movement the other way, in which she basically, no, put this hand back down. Thank you. And such a way that she actually she turns her leg inward, doesn't she? Now where does she go? Out and around herself. Yeah. Now we had that same situation when we looked at, as you go back to your pelvis and you roll your knees inward, what happens as opposed to going back to sit and you lift the inner edges of your feet and you come back to sit in such a way that your knees turn outward as you come back to sit, in the way that it has to do with something for lifting. So each one of these moments in each one of these orientations provides us with the opportunity to, yes, to, okay, in what way?
Whenever it was I was doing the dead bird, I was just fiddling around with, in my mind, it was the distance between your bottom and your heel. And, just changing the angle, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And how absolutely different and easier it was when my heel was a certain distance from my bottom. But I hadn't figured out why. And because the changes I was making were that small, I didn't realize that my heel was probably lifting.
Yeah.
But the amount that I could turn, and it's clicked now, when my heel stays down,
right,
is hugely different. Way
yeah.
easier.
Is that on? I don't know. Is this on? I don't think so. Good. It is on. So it really is those sorts of questions, isn't it? Yeah. So what I would like to do before I teach the last ATM for you guys is for you to have 4 or 5 people put each person in one person each in the orientation, and just take a moment and just watch, just look at all these movements, the movement of stepping, whether I go off or whether I step in such a way that the movement begins to invite me. This whole movement that we made of reaching. And even this you can watch. As I take the next step, does this leg, look, you fall, you sit here for a moment. Just sit right there. Give me your hand. Give me your hand. That's nice. So it's such an interesting thing. Here I am. I'm about to take my step onto this leg, and watch what happens. The moment I've lifted my heel prematurely, now I just fell. Now this leg had to engage itself to keep me from falling. Yeah. So what do I have to do if I'm going to come onto this leg, and what's happening with both legs relative to my sacrum, relative to reaching up, relative to being ready to step, relative to being able to dance, where I come to the place where this leg becomes absolutely weightless so I can take it wherever I want to go. And I can keep the quality in such a way that I can reverse it. Yeah? Because the movement can be reversible. Okay? So you can watch the person take the step, and you can see whether the movement invites the person, because a fast runner or a good jumper certainly has to do that. You can't jump like that. Right? Okay. So give yourself one little study of each of these. Just look at the potential of the movement just a little bit. This is something that I think you'll be studying and playing with and looking into for a number of years. Yeah. Because you'll see that these potentials do not live in the public. The potential's there, but the ability to actualize it does not live in the public that you serve. Yeah. Now, when a person has that ability, then all the other things begin to appear. Doris, come in for a moment. It's a funny kind of a thing. She's given me permission to play with this, and so come. It's jujitsu. Yeah, it's nothing. But even here, when a person's in this mount, now normally they try to get their hooks in, and they're trying to put you in a really bad place. But I might want to have this ability. Yeah, I might want to have that ability to make that movement in such a way that I can move her skeleton. And for self-preservation, and for women especially who are in terrible situations, that ability to utilize that to unsettle someone, to take someone off for a moment. Yeah, that movement is a self-preservatory movement. Yeah, anybody who's done any kind of grappling can begin to understand how to utilize my. Right. Right, because you have to be anchored in such a way that the force, yeah, okay. Again, the kinds of potentials that have to do with even to the level of self-preservation, yeah. All right, so will you please form little groups and just someone do one thing and look at it a little bit and then come back and just take a few moments and just explore these 5 or 6 different orientations. Make it light, make it easy. Don't study it too hard or too difficult, but just associate so that you can see the associations. I think around noon tomorrow.